Oh, I cannot be asked. I really can't. I tried. I literally tried, but seriously gave up. And the laughing and giggling, pretty much the main reason. I know I'm probably late to this party, but honestly, I don't really care. Plus, I've been doing other things like talking about Ace or Twonk. I was very much aware of this and had every intention of talking about it. So, allow me to do so. KickVic cry. Monica Riola and Jamie Markey did a podcast where they apparently talked about what happened involving Vic Mignogna and such while basically laughing about it all. And while the KickVic people found it great, people with an actual brain who listened in had issues. And the major recurring issue everyone had was that they made a podcast talking about their trauma and laughing and joking. And they're not wrong. Now, in some form of defense, I get that people react differently to trauma and shit, which I don't really have anything against. But in this case, not so much. I can already tell KickVic are gonna have a pop about this video, with no surprise, and have a go at me for some bullshit for not actually listening to it. Look, I just said I get people deal with traumas differently to others. But the major issue, which you numbskulls seem to be missing, is that these two have claimed to want to move on from all this, yet they made a fucking podcast about the whole thing. Yeah, nothing says moving on like making a fucking podcast talking about it and just slagging Vic off more and more because got nothing better to do, really. Also, Monica, gonna say this. In some pictures, you look quite pretty and attractive. And in others, you look like Dwayne Dibley's aunt. And here, you look like you should be in a retirement home. I struggle to understand the girls in hairstyles, let alone girls in photos. No, seriously, look at this pic. How the hell does she make this look natural while she looks like she just woke up on the wrong side of bed? Whatever, don't care. But let's be real here. I seriously don't get why you'd make a podcast to talk about this shit when you claim to be wanting to move on from it. Like, that's the exact opposite of moving on. I mean, you don't see Vic talking about this still, because he actually has moved on. He's not focusing on this. He's focusing on just being him and entertaining people. So why the fuck is it that he can perfectly move on from all this BS, yet Monica and Jamie both feel like stretching all this BS out even longer by bringing it all back up? And more to the point, why the fuck are KickVic loving this podcast when all that it does is drag the stupid drama out longer when, truth be told, it should have ended like 3 years ago because this is now getting ridiculous. And everyone is just getting sick and tired of it all and just want it all to end. Which it really fucking should. This has been one of the longer drama things that's going on when it should have died last census. Hell, even I want this stupid fucking thing to die down. But this podcast these two made does not help that happen. If anything, it makes it worse and makes it last even longer. And I also don't get why these tarts are having a pop at us for not liking the podcast. It's almost like opinions aren't allowed when it comes to Monica and the like. Either you like her, or you're a rape child molester apologist. And while the sexual assault thing has already been spoken about, can we quickly point out that calling Vic a child molester or something like that is a very serious accusation to make, especially when you have no proof of it. Plus, he already spoke about the whole hugging thing, so I really don't think we need to further cover this shit. However, this, I feel like, does need talking about. Vara Dark made a video talking about the podcast, as well as giving her own thoughts on Vic. What were her thoughts on him? Quite positive, actually. She genuinely didn't have anything negative to say. But she also thought that the podcast was stupid and had similar thoughts as others, which was, if you want to move away from all this crap, making a podcast talking about it is not the way to go. She then made a tweet talking about it, and this pillock by the name of Chris Rager, or Rager, however the fuck it's pronounced, made a tweet that said Vara's hair was the most traumatic thing in his life. Fuck you mate, her hair is lovely and awesome, as well as her overall cuntiness. Yeah, and the most romantic thing in my life is morons like you spouting shit. Like, literally all Vara did was give her personal thoughts and opinions on the situation, and her tweet isn't exactly wrong. Let's go back to a topic I spoke about on my channel, which is the most viewed video on my channel. Seriously, how the fuck does that have over 6,000 views? That's insane. Involving Rose Kalemba and the incident involving Pornhub. For a quick summary, she was kidnapped at knife point when she was 14, and was then raped, with the video being uploaded to Pornhub, who refused to take the video down. Like, seriously, her entire story has been publicized more than Prince Andrew's disgracement. The only time she ever does bring it up is when other people bring it up without permission. That or when someone's being a cunt. That's the only time. Normally for the rest of the time, she's not talking about it. She's either talking about personal stuff, or other things like watching Crossbridge with a dog. When the fuck did Britney Spears make a movie? Now let me express this. I am fully aware that people who go through this shit have different coping mechanisms when it comes to trauma. I am not disputing that, nor am I shaming it. Granted, I think laughing it off is kind of weird, and it makes me feel funny when I hear it, but I do understand that people respond differently. However, as stated in an earlier video, I don't overly believe her story anyways, as there are flaws in her story. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't overly believe Monica wants this drama to keep going. I do think she wants to move on from all this. It's just Ron and Jamie don't. They want to continue dragging Vic's name through the mud and ruin him. Which kind of shows that they need to get a fucking life. Also, speaking of Ron, this is kind of a worry for him to be told to look like a criminal who I hope was sentenced to death in the back of a cement mixer filled with battery acid on fire, because those are people who I fucking hate and deserve to be removed from the planet. But for some fucking reason, ISWV Fails made this stupid tweet claiming a bunch of ISWV stans also look like serial killers. Yeah, love, you could say the same about KickVic stans. And on second thought, I don't want to know. And this situation. Daman Mills. Like, I'm not spending half an hour on this. The story here is he groped a teenage boy, and KickVic are being the king of hypocrites right now. They try to cancel the ever-living shit out of Vic for something that there's no evidence of him even doing. But when it comes to Daman, they all state that they hope he betters himself. Are you fucking kidding me? I feel like I need to bring this up describing Vic and Daman. While Vic tried having sex with consenting adults, made a harmless jelly bean joke that the snowflakes overreacted to, and gave out unwarranted hugs, which are pretty fucking harmless. The situation involving Vic with Monica and Jamie has already been addressed. Daman, on the other hand, allegedly groped a minor, used a racial slur, wanted to fuck a kid, and sent cease and desists to anyone who accused him of this. Who wants to bet I'll get one at some point? And yet somehow, he gets to keep his job while Vic didn't. This literally just proves that KickVic don't give a shit if anyone else does this type of shit unless it's Vic Mignogna. And the shit involving Vic, whenever they get asked for evidence, they fail to provide any. It's fucking insane. Now allow me to say that the girls have recently come out with a second episode of their podcast, which they called Halftime. And of course, they make this super fucking claim.
If you made, I don't know, a YouTube video hating us, like, welcome. Glad that you could use our names for content, almost as if it was for clout.
I'm gonna give a fucking toss about how many views these particular videos get. I genuinely don't care. If they get a lot of views, then of course I'm gonna be happy and thankful for it. But none of what I am doing here has fucking anything to do with clout. I just personally think you're talking utter bullshit and don't believe your story. There is one thing at the start that I do completely agree with, and I'll totally admit that I am not the greatest human being on the planet. I mean, my fiancé would say otherwise, but I don't think I'm this overly great human who is unflawed and king of the world.
We've heard this actually from the very beginning. All of the things that can't make us real victims.
Ugh.
So
Sorry.
we got a little list together of reasons why we cannot possibly be real victims according to people who hate us on the internet. First one. Oh, I'll start.
Yeah.
Real victims can't talk about their trauma publicly, so we never would have said anything if we were real victims.
Like, do they not understand how ridiculous that sounds?
Yeah, I'll agree with you here too. That does kind of sound pretty stupid and dumb. I don't think people really have anything against victims coming out about that story, but when the story gets told one way and then a different way the next, that is gonna cause serious issues with people believing said story. And in regards to this...
Here's the second one. Real victims come forward immediately. So we would have spoken up sooner if we were real victims. That
Right,
just shows,
so-
like, you have no idea.
Right, so we would never say anything, but we would do it immediately.
Right.
We would not say anything immediately? What? It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. I honestly get that this is a serious topic, and it's not easy for people to come out and talk about it, especially considering how many of these then have been told which will later proven to be bollocks. It's actually made it really hard for real victims to truly come out with their story without being labeled as some sort of attention-seeking whore or something. Gross, by the way. But not everyone is going to come out with it as soon as it happens. Some people are going to be afraid about coming out with their story because it's a serious thing that shouldn't be taken lightly. However, the next part...
We're already doing it. Real victims are traumatized and don't laugh. So our laughter on the podcast proves we're not real victims.
It's almost like therapy doesn't exist.
I know.
Okay, look, truth be told, I understand people react differently to try and cope with trauma like this. But there are people out there who think people laughing about this type of shit that happened to them is something that shouldn't be able to happen. I'm literally 7.5 minutes into this episode, and I'm finding it more tolerable than the last one. But I will state my own personal thoughts here. Certain trauma you can laugh about without really receiving backlash for it. But there's others that you can't laugh at, and it's also not something you can laugh about. Like getting kicked in the stomach by your dad at the age 5 by jumping out and going boo, and nearly making him drop a computer monitor that you didn't know he was fucking carrying because I couldn't see through fucking walls, you fucking idiot. And also, why the fuck was your response to kick me in the stomach? You did know I was eating fucking dinner, and yet you kicked me in the stomach instead of doing the intelligent thing and just fucking growling at me. Okay, I accidentally ended up making this about myself, which that should never have happened. But that's what happens when you go to give an example. And I'm not even fucking kidding about the incident either. I was fucking 5 years old.
Real victims would go to the police no matter what. We would have gone to the police if we were real victims. Well, guess not what? Not everything is like an actual crime.
Can you imagine if I went to the police? The police who regularly ignore rape victims.
Ignore them constantly.
Completely, right? It wasn't until like the 80s that there was a law that said if you were raped, you had to have like a witness there to see it happen. Like that's a thing that ever happens. It doesn't happen.
The last topic I'm going to address, which they mention, is the police. Why did we not go to the police? It's actually a very good question to ask. Why didn't you go to the police and file a police report? I genuinely don't see anything wrong with that question. It's a totally harmless, innocent, and perfectly normal question to inquire about.
So imagine if I went to the cops and I was like, "Excuse me, officer, someone pulled my hair."
Yeah.
And I know who it was. Like, what? What are they going to do?
It's ludicrous. I mean,
like... For fuck's sakes. Having your hair pulled and being raped are not the same thing. Only one of those things will land you in jail. The other can just make you look like a right cunt. But the part where a law was passed where you needed a witness to said rape. For real? That's seriously the thing that was made? I also cannot believe that in the 80s, cops did fuck all about rape claims. I honestly don't 100% know if that is true or not, but if it is, then that is fucking outrageous and so fucking glad that someone had the brains to change it. I'm kinda pretty much done with this shit now. Like, unless something else significant happens involving Monica in the podcast or something, I'm pretty much done with it. But I'm not done with KickVic. Oh no. I'm not even close to being done with them. And I'll be addressing certain people on Funimation who KickVic also defend for some fucking reason. And then I'll probably be done with the entire topic in general. And I'll just go back to fucking up everybody's day playing Watch Dogs Legion because it's fun. But for now, yeah, I'm done here. But I have a few more vids to make before I can go and work on other projects. But for now, take care everyone, and stay safe.
Come on!